Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host Scott Ramp, here to usher you into April 3rd. April 3rd, it's the beginning of the month. We also have a First Friday, so I have your art guide for you guys if you guys are going out and around downtown Missoula between 8 and 5 p.m. tonight. We also have a bunch of other events that are happening this weekend. It's definitely the kind of like the first real First Friday of spring, just to kind of get the scope out there, big outdoor activities, a lot of things happening in and around Missoula. We got some city council for you guys. We also got Pre-critic. We got some news, things that are happening, just like constantly always happening. We got new Dubbin stuff. We also got a video from last week's Project Community Connect. We also got some new programs on our MCAT's YouTube page, but we're going to dive right in. We don't have much time, as the city council meeting on Monday was pretty short, so I kind of abridged a lot of the clips here, as I'm going to be focusing more on committee meetings. So before we go, I also wanted to bring awareness, because this is a Child Abuse Awareness Month, and Ivy Anderson spoke on this during comments.
So thank you, Mayor and City Council, for recognizing this important proclamation. It's a powerful reminder that the well-being of children is a shared responsibility across our community. We talk about children as our most when we talk about children as our most precious resource, we mean the kids in our neighborhoods who need safe homes, strong relationships, and consistent support. Child abuse and neglect are preventable, but only if we work together. Prevention starts with connection, supporting families early, reducing isolation, and ensuring access to resources. We also know that while trauma can have lasting impacts, positive relationships can build resilience and change a child's future.
All right. So that was Ivy Anderson talking a little bit about that. And anytime any awareness can be brought up on these kinds of serious situations, can have long-lasting effects on kids' mental health, which translates to more broken adults if not caught soon. Kids never listen to what you say, they only care if you show up. Neglect is abuse. As we get further into the mini proclamations, the city is aiming for a 0 by 50 model when it comes to waste. So Kelly Webster, Home Resource, spoke more about this and the collaborations between many departments, including the city.
We are moving the needle with the work that we are doing, and it's only possible because of collaboration. So the idea of public and nonprofit and private partnerships is really profound in this town. I've been at Home Resource for 3.5 years, and I'm telling you that everyone that I talk to in our community cares about sustainability, and people like to get involved in so many different ways. And so that's a little bit of what Zero Waste Action Month is about, is giving people opportunities to learn, to experience, to participate, all of those things. And that might just be coming to a session to learn about compost, or it could be one of the lunch and learns. We're going to host a lunch and learn that walks through the 0 by 50 plan and the new roadmap that we've created for the next 3 to 5 years.
And so, you're going to see this presentation during during my committee reports, part of my city council report. And a big chunk of this has to do with the advocacy, including recycling old building materials for a second life at Home Resource, including deconstruction of facilities to reduce the landfill. This is the ultimate goal, but complete zero is something that never will be achieved, but major reduction is key to those efforts. The library's Living Roof, where the with City Council member Bob Campbell speaks against the funding of the project on grounds of TIF.
Inappropriate use of tax increment financing to the tune of $75,000. I understand altogether we're talking well over $1 million. I know most of that is grant money, but grant money also is taxpayer money at the end of the day. And I haven't visited the library myself here about a week and a half ago. I was hard pressed to find either inside the building or around the outside the building any evidence of blight. Indeed, the only instance of blight I see is the old library property next door.
All right, so that was Bob Campbell's comments on that, decrying that we already have a beautiful new library, which is true, but the concept of TIF funding has been a major point in Bob Campbell's efforts to curb city spending, even though this money is being appropriated for improvement and expansion of library roof patio. The total price that on top of the city's $75,000 kicked over from TIF funding, which is Urban Renewal District Fund money, which is essentially businesses and commercial businesses downtown fed into this urban renewal district for the last 20 plus years. There's many different urban renewal districts, and these are pots that are made for these specific kinds of projects. And so this is exactly the perfect kind of project, since it is a $1 million project and TIF is only kicking in about $75,000, with plenty of other donations totaling $250,000 matching for this $1 million grant. So needless to say, this motion passed with a little less opposition. Mayor Andrea Davis at the end of the meeting spoke about her time meeting with international leaders in Missoula, talking about some of the uncomfortableness when it comes to dealing with this current status quo of America.
You know, coming from another country where things operate differently, you know, a lot of folks just don't operate with basic civic understandings. The other opportunity was for us to hear their stories. And so many of these folks are unable to move forward with the American dream because they are unable to renew their work visas. They're unable to get the hearing that they need to for their green card. And it's difficult. It's not anything that we can do. We can't affect that locally.
All right. And so, you know, one of the things is that the mayor just wanted to show that some support and do what they can to just help people legally go through the process to make sure that everything's good. But shortcomings besides the point. Part of these outreach is to bolster their community in Missoula so they can get access to resources to help understand certain walls that they may hit as they navigate citizenship and updating their status. For committee meetings, Public Safety and Health are converting our Dorm 4 for an addition to the fire station number 4 just off of Broadway. This is for 24/7 service to our community. You know, they have a new budget, they got that levy passed, not to mention they got the grants to help bolster their employees for the next 3 years. I think they're on their second year on this particular one, but Lonnie Rash, the fire chief, speaks about some of these changes and just talking about the operation of including a new dorm.
Operational capacity. Busiest station in the city, obviously with 2 engine companies, that's a given, and we knew that would happen. I want to focus a little bit on the training facility compromise. So Station 4 is MFD's specific or designated training facility where we have our training tower, we have our training room, and we have converted that training room, or a greater portion of that training room, into temporary dorm housing. And so on the left hand, you see the picture that's there. Those are the 3 individual dorms that we had purchased as temporary housing for that room. But it has significantly reduced our ability to do daily training, to do regional training. We've actually had to go out and find other locations to do our training. Generally, we've been very successful at having those areas donated to us, but there is a potential cost coming up as others over the next 2 years asking too many times to have them donate that space to us.
All right, and part of the costs are going to be in the hundreds of thousands to even move this along. And I'm sure you've heard many fire stations in town have not evolved with the times and have been playing catch up as more and more costs associated with equipment. Basic maintenance has made operations tighten their belts. Of course, we're in the second of their 3rd year of their fire department grants for firefighters before they're put on payroll to free up some of the funds to get the ball rolling thanks to our past levy. Lonnie also talks about plans for both short-term and long-term plans on this particular site.
And so we are proposing to construct a 14 by 32 dormitory structure at the rear or side of Station 4. The purpose-built addition will house the 6th engine company during the 2-year interim period between now and we get Station 6 built. It will restore the training room to full operational and daily use immediately upon completion of the dorm. Critically, this is not a temporary solution or fix. Upon the activation of Station 6, the structure will transition directly into a maintenance division workspace, expanding their ability to provide that service. So it serves as...
So yeah, I mean, as you heard from him, is that this is going to be temporary for the Station 6 crew, and then as soon as they wrap up their time there, they're going to convert it into more maintenance and other additional services that are lacking in behind. So short-term gains for Station 6 employees, but then the long term for Station 4 to have an expanded dormitory is to basically be able to have a little bit more elbow room for the fire department as we are a growing community. Climate Conservation Park spoke about the West Broadway corridor, which is getting quite the facelift after the success of Karis Park phasing projects. They just want to get a plan out there to in order for grants, funding, and all these mechanisms. And so far, this is just a master plan. They have some concepts, but those aren't the final concepts because they haven't even gone to a certain level of design standards because they're working on a plan, before they can work on the design. So Morgan Valiant, Open Space Lands Manager, spoke a little bit more about this and kind of give you a layout of the map. So if you take a good look at this particular image, you'll be able to see what he's talking about.
We are working on a project that roughly runs from the railroad trestle bridge that extends from West Broadway across to McCormick Park near Osprey Stadium, all the way down to the California Street Bridge, both sides of the river, including the island in the middle of the river. This project came about over several years as the city has developed and purchased Parkland, and then most recently through our colleagues over at Missoula Public Works and the Clark Fork Coalition and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks acquisition of the Flynn Lowney Ditch. We have known for a long time that there are a ton of issues and opportunities. This is an area of river that has been heavily impacted by a bunch of different activities. There used to be a sawmill on the South Bank that has basically reconstructed the entire South Bank out of waste concrete. There's car bodies, there's trash. We have been cleaning it up, but the longer we have worked in the area, the more we have realized that we really need to re-envision this entire section of river.
And I think that with a lot of the things that they were talking about in particular in this site is that, you know, the open space folks, especially Morgan, has been decrying that erosion and a lot of those issues are very concerning in terms of just making sure that the river is healthy. And part of that always tends to get the can kicked down the road a little bit more, but having this as a potential transformative project overall for potential recreation, input, and all that stuff, they're looking to see if they could get that kind of benefit that they got from Rattlesnake Dam removal. Once the city acquired that water company not so long ago, the Rattlesnake Dam removal was very low cost for the city to remove because there are a lot of people, a lot of organizations, Trout Unlimited were one of the few ones that were very pro, and they used a lot of their grant money to help the removal of the dam, including interested parties, just to keep the flow of the streams, rivers, and creeks going. So I remember, you know, when at times Missoula folks were advocating for the max wave in this area to complement the trail from West Broadway's access bridge. Unlike these plans to extend the trails further connecting to Caris Park and prioritize the river health and erosion mitigation. Morgan reflects on public input on this particular site, and this is what he had to say.
There were a lot of comments, and a lot of the primary comments kind of fell into like 4 different buckets. And so number one was recreation and site amenities, basic things like how will the wave or the boat ramp or the rapid be built? What will it be built out of? Will there be lighting, bathrooms, trees, irrigation, parking? A lot of questions about infrastructure. Access and safety, of course, has been front and center as we've developed this project through the last few years. And so more questions about why the master plan that we're bringing forward doesn't include bridge access to the island. How would the city clean up the island without terrestrial access? How will the plan address urban camping in the area?
And yeah, so many of those questions people raised, especially, you know, if you're going to develop that whole area, you want to make sure it's public, public safety, health, and all that kind of stuff. This isn't about building something as it is more about creating access and restoration of the river, much like the Rattlesnake Dam removal. Like I said before, they tend to put these out in phases as they leverage grants in the city for funding. This isn't going to be an overnight kind of thing. This is going to take some time because from what I've seen in this particular meeting, they won't really have any kind of design standard or 30% of the design standard, which is required for grants and even further funding to move this forward. And they won't be able to even get to that point until winter of this year, which will be in December 2026. So this is a long process, and this is just kind of like they're teasing us exactly what they're wanting to do. So Morgan talks about what they plan to see in the future, and so this is what he had to say.
This is the vision for what this area we intend to create in this area. It has not really fundamentally changed since I was last here, besides some better labeling and call outs and stuff like that. So on the upstream end, going from bottom all the way around counterclockwise, number 7, we do intend to rebuild the boat ramp, widen it, make it so you can fit 2 vehicles down there, actually create an eddy so that you can catch it and take out. We anticipate that this will also become a put-in as more work gets done downstream. Number 5, we are manipulating the river. We're moving the Thalwag, the main flow of the river, further out into the river channel rather than right against that south bank. We are building a bunch of bank on number 6. More riparian area, more banks and opportunities for folks to get down to the river. At the head and top of the island, we've got that grade control structure, which is also going to serve as a Class 2 rapid. There's already a Class 2 rapid there right now. It's just built out of Jersey barriers, waste concrete, and rebar. And
all right, so you got an idea of, you know, some of the things that they have going on over there. They're looking to like restore and you know, this section of the river is a very important part of it to just essentially enhance all this stuff. This isn't about let's see, where am I in my notes? Let's see. There will be a type of wave, but a green roller, not a crash wave like max wave would have been. If you know any engineering, which I just kind of learned this, there's not much. There's definitely a difference between this, but the essence is there with the max wave. Because I remember about 5-6 years ago, there was a coalition of people who wanted the max wave, which is like Brennan's wave, but max. But with so much more additional river access points for hangouts and focus traffic, then let people figure it out, causing that erosion problem we've been dealing with. So Morgan talks about how we're actually going to pay for it. And like I said before, it's going to be a huge undertaking, phasing, so they're going to do priority work.
obviously, this project would be not a one and done thing. We couldn't even do it if we had all the money. It would be multiple phases. And so this really would probably be 3 projects that would happen over a period of time. And so there's a really good opportunity to bring in funding streams for certain parts, get it done, and then move to the next phase. And so.
And if you look at this thing, like, you can barely see it, but the very first kind of stuff that they're going to be working on is going to cost like $150,000, with a bunch of other different additional stuff with North transitional creations with $500 and something thousand. And then the total is roughly going to be like, as you see here, there's all these different phases. There's going to be 14 different marks of investment on this one, totaling about $7.2 million for this overall restoration. So there's definitely a lot of money being put into this thing, and they expect this to be an interesting thing, which $400,000 of TIF with private donations from the Resource Legacy Fund, with an additional $100,000 as they're getting this ball rolling for the design standards. So this is just the planning fund. So this is one of those projects a lot of people will be able to jump on for water sports, as Brennan's Wave won't be the only attraction for surfing. This is a long process, and they plan to have 30% designed by winter this year. Planning, and more planning. And as we circle back to the 0 by 50 initiative, climate and community specialists gave a special presentation, informational only, about some of the partnerships with the city staff, along with home resources, put together a short-term task force to create a 5-year roadmap to identify actionable implemental strategies that will help move the needle on waste diversion. So Lee Ratterman, Community Resilience Specialist, gave presentation about this.
A lot of times when we come in and talk to council and within our community presentations, we're focusing a lot on things like renewable energy, clean energy, electric vehicles, those sorts of things. But we're really here today to focus on our goal of zero waste, because it is a really important climate solution. And I always like to take this opportunity to go over that and talk about why zero waste is an important climate solution. And really that's for kind of 2 big reasons. One is methane. So when organic material goes into the landfill, it creates methane, which is a really powerful greenhouse gas emission that traps heat within our atmosphere. In fact, it's 80 times kind of more potent than CO2 over a short 20-year period. And so getting those materials out of the landfill solves that methane production problem. Another thing is, when we look at our local emissions, our methane always makes up methane from the landfill makes up a really small percentage of that pie. But when we look at the global emissions and factor in things like mining, production, transportation, storage, and disposal of the food and the stuff that we consume, that pie chart piece gets a lot bigger, as much as.
And, when you think about it like this, one of the things you've probably been hearing in the news, everything like that, as gas prices go up, food and everything, all the supplies and everything else starts going up in tandem. And part of this is to help combat that unnecessary increases of usage of gas and whatnot, because when it comes down to it, like semis and those big major vehicles that keep the food pumping into our grocery stores, it's one of those things you don't really think about. But now that we're dealing with this, we're definitely seeing a lot of price hikes and stuff like that. And part of this will help the community, and is one of those many things these groups are doing with the city to reduce the amount of energy needed to live in our status quo, which is pretty unsustainable. And I produce, actually did the math on my own footprint in the landfill, as I produce roughly 20 gallons of trash a week. I call that a bag and a half of trash on average, since I use maybe about 13-gallon bags. Assuming I live another 50 years, 52 weeks gives give and take, I have a total of 52,000 gallons of trash, which is enough to fill 2 standard public pools. But you also assume most people in Missoula are similar to me, and make that sum total, you get 81,332,160 gallons of trash a year, based on our only 78,000 residents in the city of Missoula. That's roughly 2,711 pools filled every year with garbage. With all that, the city managed to reduce Missoula's overall waste by 30% since 2018, less than 10 years. So Lee also talks about how they did it and talks a little bit more about this.
Things like focusing on infrastructure so that everybody in Missoula has the opportunity to compost, recycle, and divert construction materials. Missoula County, in partnership with Home Resource, opened a hazardous waste collection site. We have our municipally owned compost facility, which gives us a lot more local control over the materials that we take and how we're able to take them. We've had some large-scale events year over year sign on to be zero waste, and again, with our wonderful Home Resource partners, have been able to divert so much material from these large events. We are collectively with our community partners working in schools, we're working in businesses. We have a really wonderful food recovery network in Missoula. And then internally, we're trying to lead by action. So the city has adopted things like a sustainable building policy, and MRA has a deconstruction requirement that really helps.
All right, so you kind of get the idea of what they've been doing over the last decade or so, just talking about many of their long-range plans. And, part of this also has to do with, Home Resources also speaking about their further goals, because I just had Leon, and so now we have Kelly Hess from Home Resource talking about this further and some of their goals.
A goal of creating short-term goals within the 0 by 50 plan. So we had not yet realized or known that we had met that benchmark, but there's a group of people that are still really committed to this plan, and that's something of note. So a plan that was adopted back in 2018, we still really believe in the plan, and it's in depth. You can find the full plan, linked on the city's website, and believing in that plan, it was pretty easy when we got a group together to go, okay, what's next? How are we going to now make sure that it's still current and that it's still applicable today? And
part of this has to do with, the city-owned compost. Home Resource works in tandem with the city, many of these partnerships and traffic studies to improve traffic flow and to reduce wait time. Because, one of the things is that an idling car is just as bad as cars driving through, and the less time you're on the road, the better you have to deal with it. So, but being able to do those studies with those black strips that you drive over, they can estimate the volume of traffic. That is just one example, as Mountain Line is a major win in terms of greenhouse gas reduction, with only a handful of vehicles still running on diesel. Kelly also mentioned the downed trees from the July storms, just talking about some of the impacts to our community, especially when it comes to carbon fighting emissions, which are trees.
All the trees that went down and all of the green materials that were able to be composted both here locally, but really put some pressure on the capacity for our local compost facility. And so learning more about the capacity, because as we're engaging more in the public event side of having compostable materials, for example, at the fair, Roots Fest, are those available, we also need to make sure that our compost facility can handle if we're encouraging more of that. So
And then of course, you might have remembered if you were here 2 years ago, it's coming up on our 2 years since the windstorm. And I mean, it's such a huge event that, the idea that all these kind of additional downed trees and having to transport most of that additional waste to various locations across Missoula just to have them mulched and dealt with. You know, there's a lot of opt-in programs that help provide resources for many places to reduce waste and promote compost, from restaurants to school lunches. No stone unturned to find the trash and recycle impossible. Reduce, reuse, and recycle are those three major hubs of green community, with even thinking about the fourth R, which is refuse. Much like the city refused to place artificial turf on the baseball field, and not necessarily because they chose not to, but the paddleheads pulled out of that one. Kelly also talked more about how Home Resources has been in the place to go for giving yourself a shade darker of your green thumb. So this is what she had to say.
Hosting a ton of events. I shared the calendar and it's on our website and out there. We're getting a lot of attention for it already, which is wonderful. But a few events that I wanted to highlight in Zero Waste Action Month that are leading up to the opening of that Zero Waste Collections will be, we're having a composting 101. Missoula Compost is going to host something at Home Resource, and that's a question that we get a lot about, and Home Resource is not the expert in composting. But Missoula Compost really knows what's acceptable and not, and can explain how the process works. So that's going to be on April 8th. On April 15th, we're doing another presentation like this, because something that I forgot to mention on a previous slide is we worked with Local Policy Lab, thanks, a nonprofit group that coordinates with local governments on climate action issues and how we can focus on community engagement. And they really coached us with that Zero Waste Task Force on, for one, getting that group together, how we should walk through building this next phase of the plan. But then now they're helping us figure out how to get more community engagement. And we know that that's so critical and important. So.
And also, you know, I wanted to mention at the very end, just to not to cut her off, but they're also doing a plastic detox clinic on the 29th in April for their many of their lessons and many of their classes to help reduce and engage and all that kind of stuff. And of course, the entire presentation is on Missoula's city's website at ci.missoula.mt.us, or you can go to engagemissoula.com to look up any current or upcoming projects the city has on the docket. Up next, we got some new programs on MCAT, and we'll be back with some of those movies that are coming out this weekend.
So today I bring you 3 lessons that I think will help us meet this unique and dangerous moment in our political history. The first comes down to us as ancient wisdom from Aristotle. We trace the very way we talk about politics to Greek philosophy. They coined the term politeia to describe the study of constitutions and how they either gave power to the one, the few, or in the rarest of all occasions, the many. And then we ask, does those powers used for the good of the community, or are they selfishly used for the tyrannical ruling class?
During that time, I found a paper, and I have lost the copy of it, but there was mention that there was an Indian woman actually encountered and got mauled by a grizzly up at Lolo Pass at Packer Meadows. I need to verify that. I haven't been able to find that paper since. But then after the big whole battlefield, you know, they did not bury anyone. The soldiers just sort of left, you know, all the dead right there in the willows by the present day, you know, exhibit site there. And there was reports of grizzlies, you know, feeding on the dead there.
The Moon and Penny had their challenges. Everyone does. Penny could never quite hear the moon, and Penny couldn't reach out and touch her, no matter how high Penny flew. Staying up all night meant Penny slept all day. Little by little, she stopped seeing as much of her brothers and sisters. When loneliness crept over Penny, she would try to turn into a star so that she could join the moon in the night sky. Penny would crinkle her toes and wiggle her nose and try to think star thoughts, but when she opened her eyes, she was always stuck.
And believe it or not, depending on the year, you can start seeing them on the wing as early as mid-February. But this year was crazy because it was so incredibly warm. So I'm not sure of the exact species, but I'm pretty sure it was the California tortoiseshell. We got, somebody sent a picture in December, somebody sent a picture in January. I saw one out here in January. As soon as February started hitting, we were getting more reports, and now, aside from this little blip that we had here, we should really start seeing a big emergence of all these butterflies pretty shortly.
Great. We have a street medicine team that we're going to start back up again, where we're going out into the community to try and find folks who don't even feel that they're, or they can't get to us even at that physical location, trying to sort of enfold them into primary care so that we can actually start taking care of them, mitigating problems before they turn into larger problems and emergencies to the best of our ability. And again, trying to get them within the system so that we can kind of keep them afloat while they're going through, a real difficult time as a result of, social determinant.
Setbacks, where we'll see often a meme like the average person is 2 paychecks away from a crisis, because household economies are that tight.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. It's time for Pre-critic, where I judge movies based on absolutely nothing but my biases towards movies and the overall predictability of most movies. Up next, we got this new Super Mario Galaxy movie, which is the sequel to the Super Mario Brothers movie. This one brings back the old Mario Bros. And gang with another adventure that reaches the stars. While the first one is about reaching the stars, powering up, this one's more about the pre-ultimate Mario 3D game, as it introduces Rosalina, the princess in the stars. Essentially, when I break this down, this plot is very much like how the Lego Movie did their sequel, the Lego Movie 2, the sequel, and it's very much just like, oh, let's go into space, and that's kind of what they did too. So it's kind of like, you jump the shark. This one's Mike, you shoot the moon, and that's kind of what you get from it. But it's a fun, dumb kids movie, with a bunch of Mario things and things for the 40th anniversary. So people like me who grew up with Mario can be like, oh, I recognize that. Oh, look, that character is from that one game, and that character is from that one other game. Oh, that's cool. So that's essentially what you can get from this movie, because it's a video game movie, and those kind of movies are becoming more and more popular as Marvel movies are basically kind of in the throes of like, oh, we got to reboot what we did with Infinity War. I think, when you make a movie called Endgame, it's pretty much the end game. So moving on, we also have the drama. The other British comic book guy comes around to get married to Spider-Man's gal. If you know, you know. We always associate these people with their iconic relationships with their real-life celebrity folks. So we have Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, working together to make this movie possible, where they're a married couple, where a certain drama of a past of what she did or what she was going to do, all those kind of things lay up in the air, as it turns out that she did something or didn't do something that was very messed up that caused a lot of strain on their relationship. So this movie is more or less about coping with the idea that somebody is capable of doing terrible things while at the same time working on the happiest day of their life, their marriage. Anyways, that's interesting. And then we got Biker. Basically a movie about a motocross told from the Bollywood machine that pumps out more movies in a month than Hollywood does in an entire year. You'll never win is something that a reluctant mentor says to a young up-and-comer as they figure out how to do the thing required to do in dirt bike racing, which is turning, going up and down hills, and being first. Did I miss anything? Anyways, enjoy plenty of shots of bikes and races and some light, heavy CGI for some of the dangerous stunts. And then that's pretty much it for your movies that are coming out this weekend. We have a new Dubbin stuff from the 1937 movie Storm in a Teacup. So when I come back, we're going to talk about some of the art that's happening in the downtown Missoula area. It is First Friday.
Boop-a-doop-a-doo, boop-a-doop-boop-boo, boop-a-doop-boop. Come on.
I can help with that.
My fragile mill ego. Ugh, I got it, don't worry.
Nothing like a cigarette machine to tell you what you're all about.
Oh, you and your cigarettes and everything like that. Why don't you just quit? I'm not in the mood to quit. Besides, I have a habit.
That excuse is as realistic as your Cadillac. What color was it? Boysenberry?
Eh?
What do you think?
No. I'm gonna step outside. Oh, look.
I don't trust robots. They're cold, industrial.
Oh, don't judge them. They're gonna replace all our jobs and then we won't have to work. We don't have to...
Speaking of work, Did you find that job?
Oh, I found a lot of jobs. I just didn't get any.
With this again.
Well, one can say looking for a job is a job in and of itself. Let's take a look. See how much I weigh.
I gave you a clean 160. And you don't need a robot to tell you that. I don't know if I really trust the machines.
Well, of course, they'll be subservient to humans.
My ears are burning. You'll be crushed by the weight of your ignorance. Underestimating us.
Let's get out of here. This is too scary.
Yeah, I can just see it now. Automation. Assembly lines.
Yeah, it's going to be a soup assembly line for all the pores.
Could you...
Fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but that's the last nickel. You know, I just realized that's why they call them Nickelodeon. You get to look at things for a nickel. What are you looking at anyways? Better not be smut.
It's just, cats and tutus.
Cats and tutus? That's the future I can get behind. Let's try to have some fun. I know you're out of money, but let me pay for everything.
Have you thought about how that makes me feel?
I was hoping you'd say thank you, at least. You know, because I'm trying to help you while you're trying to help us.
Wow, this is getting really deep for Dubbin stuff.
You want me to be funny? How's that sound? It's a fart noise. I made it with my mouth.
I've never loved you more than I do right now.
Huh.
Well, you know, I've always kind of loved you, and...
Well, that's nice to hear. It's just that...
Wait, what is it?
Well,
you can tell me. We're in this together.
Your mother asked my father for some money, and he said yes.
That's great news.
All right, out of the way, everyone. I'm here to make a huge bet. A huge, huge bet. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Yes, ma'am, there is.
I just got a big payday. And I'm going to roll the dice.
Snake eyes, you lose.
Come on. I lost already? How is this possible? I barely rolled. I was just... Oh, sorry, honey. I just lost all the money.
What's the meaning of this?
Well, it's called gambling. She lost.
How did she lose so
She
quickly?
bet a lot of money.
Well, there ain't no way. How is this even possible?
Well, you put the money down, and she
Well,
lost.
this isn't possible. Like, you can't just do that.
I don't care. All bets final. Get out of here. All right, no. That's enough.
As you can tell by my hat, I'm a book. I won't let you take our money.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, no way. She was gambling with money she doesn't actually own. Mom, that was money for our house.
I was on a hot streak. Yeah, I don't know anything about anything. Don't blame me. Ouch, don't touch me. I'm hurting.
If you have to break your legs, I'll understand.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some art that's happening in the downtown Missoula area. This is First Friday, and First Friday, you know, if you go to MissoulaEvents.net, you can see a lot of these things online, including some of these next pieces of art I'm about to show you. This one is featuring Julie from Boise, is born and raised in Missoula, a devoted mom of three and a preschool teacher who has spent more than 22 years nurturing young minds in our community. In February 2025, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and has since stepped away from teaching while undergoing aggressive treatment. While through that, Julie continues to find joy and strength through painting, and we honor to feature Julie at the FMC Books Artist of the Month for April, and we'll celebrate her work with the open house, which is happening today from 4 to 8 p.m. during First Friday. So you guys can enjoy that and support her and her art. Then we also have Pot Sketch. This is the closing reception at the Clay Studio of Missoula. Experience the remarkable artwork featuring the Pot Sketch 2026 auction. This year's exhibit showcasing Pot Sketch by an outstanding roster of local artists: Stella Knoll, Jessica Letzinger, Leslie Van Staven, Miller, and many more. In addition to these small-scale works, Pot Sketch features an exciting selection of live auction pieces by nationally acclaimed ceramic artists such as Julia Galloway, Richard Notkin, Beth Lowe, and Steve Young Lee. Together, the exhibit will highlight the breadth and vitality of contemporary ceramics, offering collectors and supporters alike a chance to acquire truly distinctive art of work. So this is to raise money for the Clay Studio of Missoula. Pot Sketch is a lot of ceramicists put them on display, but also for sale for this particular thing to help support the Clay Studio of Missoula. That's usually how they do that. In Your Face is at Squishy with Lady Pajama, Lawless, Christian Monaco, Charlotte O'Brien, Dusty Shiver, Justy Matowskett, Tricia Opstead will be all featured at the Higgins building on 210 Higgins in the Higgins building. This is the second floor, room 206. You'll see a sandwich board just out the thing. You can't miss it. It's kind of like if you go it's between Radius Gallery and kind of where Dana Gallery is on basically that old part of the buildings next to, I want to say, Butterfly Herbs. So anyways, In Your Face is being featured there with many different artists and whatnot, especially featuring Lady Pajama. Always a great artist there. Then we got Aspen and Cameron Decker at the Missoula Art Museum. This is the Buffaloes in Our Good Medicine in the Linda Frost Gallery for view of April 7th through the 25th. So this is a new exhibit they just put up there, and Aspen Decker is an enrolled member of the Confederate Salish Kootenai Tribes at Salish Language Educator, a studio artist working primarily in ledger art through her practice, Shining Camus Studios. She is a enrolled member of the Navajo Nation and a descendant of the Confederate Salish Kootenai Tribes with a background in art education at the MAM and at Salish Kootenai College, together founded by Alive and Well, a Salish education organization dedicated to authentic Indigenous education experiences. The evening includes artist talk at 5:30 p.m. with live music by Low Horgan Seagull Trio, free and open to the public. Like I said, First Friday is a free event for people to wander in, see all sorts of things like that. International Wildlife Film Festival has an art gallery featured at the Roxy Lounge at the Roxy Theater. The International Wildlife Film Festival is opening the Wildlife Art Gallery, and this is happening today from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Roxy Lounge, and will be open and displaying wildlife-themed paintings, sculptures, prints, and photography by artists Julia Latre, Grace Lawless, Jonathan Marquise, James Newsom, Caitlin Radloff, and Ryan Webster. Complimentary drinks will be served. The gallery will be open on display through the end of the International Wildlife Festival, which runs April 18th through the 23rd. Then we also have ceramics by Hez Potts. So this is at the artist shop. They're doing decorative ceramics are adored with the whimsical flowers, which explores the humor between opposite emotions. So this is one of the a shorter synopsis, but you guys get to check out this at the artist shop. Then we got the Confluence Center is doing A Handful of Earth, featuring works by Monica Gillis, Brings Yellow, Marinta Growing Thunder, Faith Price, Tashina Wolf Chief, Allison Kelly, and the traveling exhibit Indian Country in a Glimpse by photographers from Flathead Nation. So each artist will bring their own vision of joys and beauties of their everyday existence, from documenting the beautiful land that we live on and must preserve, and ruminations on families and ancestry. To capture the day-to-day life with the people around us, the exhibit is full of beauty and power in inviting the viewer to find a place in an ever-changing world, also featuring live music by the duo Mad Sea. A Handful of Earth will remain on display through April 24th. And then last, but definitely not least, at Calypso Salmon Shop, they're hosting Chloe Bruising at Calypso. They're featuring Chloe Bruising, a talented local artist known for painting stunning Montana scenery over vinyl records. Meet the artist, browse her one-of-a-kind pieces, and soak in the evening of local art and community. They'll be open late until 7:30 p.m., so grab dinner and make a night of it, and all that kind of stuff. So you get to enjoy that kind of stuff. You know, it's First Friday. Go out, have some food, enjoy some art, enjoy some hors d'oeuvres. There's a bunch of other events happening in and around town, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, we're going to throw it over to some a nice overview, a highlight reel of sorts of last week's Project Community Connect. So here's Project Community Connect 2026. right, so there's a little taste of that. And it's always good to have those kind of community efforts to bring a lot of resources together for one day a year so people have access, get some swag and all that kind of stuff just so they can get all that what. So some news happening here in Missoula. Economic times a little bit hard for sure, and resources are definitely getting stretched thin. Stave and Hoop with a Pangea restaurant is closing, yet another business has fallen into these uncertain economic times. Restructuring is common, very much like how the VFW abruptly closed, and this just happened and Tuesday's statement said, "This isn't goodbye. It's see you soon. We have hit a pause for now due to some unexpected changes, but in this community, this energy and the space mean way too much to us to be gone for long. We are taking the time to reset, regroup, and return with a new concept plus new ownership. Thank you for the love, support, and unforgettable moments. We feel it more than you know. Stay tuned. We'll be back before you know it," end quote. So one of the things that I also do here in town is that I do a couple of shoots here and there, community shoots. Last night there was the North Side basically master plan. They're deciding to what they're going to do with the annexation of that new property at the Fireburn, where the Story House movie studios are planning to build out their apparatus for their movie studios, not to mention have the additional acreage in that particular area to help bolster affordable housing. One of the things also I did this week was former governor of Montana, Mark Roscoe, spoke at the law school at the University of Montana this week as he brings in folks to lecture series promoted by the law school. He really leaned into Trump during this the Trump administration, the current state of the country, and lacks preventative laws in place that have been disregarded and ill-enforced. And he was a leader of the Republican legacy groups in Montana and also the governor of Montana in the 90s. Roscoe spoke at length about how people are more engaged than ever. And while that's great, he still believes that there are some things lacking in ways to prevent one illegal action or another, culminating in more than an hour of uninterrupted blasting of Trump and his administration. As Trump would probably call folks like him a rhino, Republican in name only, as he's fighting for the future of the GOP and supporting such candidates as Seth Bodner with John Tester, because Seth Bodner is running as independent. John Tester and him are kind of going on either sides of the aisle to kind of give support to the former president of the University of Montana. Roscoe also outlined the ranked choice voting, as Montana was in a whisker of getting that passed, which instead of relying on the two-party primary system that brings in dark corporate money, but the legislature did not pass those laws. He also mentioned that the current governor, Gianforte, and Attorney General Austin Knudsen, in their attempts to prevent protests and gatherings in Helena. It was quite the meeting, and MCAT will have it available on YouTube page soon. Daily Montana also had another story about him campaigning for independent Seth Bodner for the Senate. And as we dust off more of the political outrage for a bit, let's set it into the U.S. Forest Service looking to move away from Washington to Salt Lake City, with centers still operating in Missoula. It is pretty much the heart in the center of the western region of the United States, and will work to bring the 5 overall services centers as the future of these programs. Region 1 is Missoula's headquarters, will shift to a director's office in Helena. Missoula would also retain a National Service Center and its Rocky Mountain Research Center. Credit USDA. The 4 service, 9 regional offices will be placed by 15 state directors under the reorganization plan. The new structure mirrors the way that the Interior Department Bureau of Land Management operates through state rather than regional offices. Former Forest Service Chief Dale Bosworth, a new Missoula resident, said he sees the advantage in this change in his own career. He was a regional forester in both Missoula-based Region 1 and Ogden, Utah-based Region 4, each of which had responsibility for parts of Idaho. So, which is important to note that Lolo National Forest is also Montana and Idaho in those 2 areas. And the image below that we have some of the regions to kind of give you an idea of what they're technically talking about as we show the regions. So, we're Region 1, obviously. We're number 1, Montana, North Dakota, some parts of Idaho right up here. Region 4 is essentially where they're going to be having the base of operations in Salt Lake City, with the various other places to look after a lot of these forests. And the Forest Service employs about 35,000 full-time and seasonal workers. They cover 49 million acres suitable for timber management, 74 million acres for livestock grazing, 37 million acres for federally designated wilderness. Wildfires burned about 1.4 million acres before the first day of spring this year. The federal officials at meetings agreed with an active season was on the horizon, which definitely takes out the idea. So if you really think about the concept of an active season, it has nothing to do with the 4 seasons or anything like that. It just says the highest probability of fires potentially breaking out. In many ways, even the governor of California decried last year, not last year, but the year before, during that winter time as a means to essentially say that we are at the end of fire season and now we're just at a fire year every year. So just one of those things is that Montana Free Press is also reckoning with budget uncertainty going into the new federal regulations on how we handle wildfires. Quote, "We're not looking at 2026 as the year we're go in and make significant changes to policy." Brad Shoemaker, U.S. Interior Department of Wildlife Fire Services Fuel Specialist, told EQC, "What you saw in 2024 and 2025 is how we'll operate." So they're going to continue their operations that they did in the past, but this also had to do with a lot of those doged programs and that mashed up wildlife mapping programs in a single agency, which could have leadership oversee the vast majority of lands across the U.S. And as you heard from the Forest Service Department, there's quite a bit of green in the western United States. And one thing you should also note is that basically west of the Mississippi, it's dry. It's dry as all heck. And that's usually just, because we don't have the benefits of the lake effect that many of those places east of the divide, which tends to be a lot greener. So if you ever take a look at a map of the ecological map with green, you can see it's a lot greener on the other side of the Mississippi. The consolidation is also the back burner as these Senate and Congresses are constantly at odds over the Save Voter Act, curbing many efforts to get any kind of budgets, policy, or having an effective government in general. National Park Services, Fish, Wildlife, and Park Services, and Bureau of Indian Affairs each have its own significantly different firefighting priorities. For example, BIA might want to protect commercial timber stands for the forest fire on the tribal reservations, while NPS might view a similar blaze in a national park as a necessary ecological service. And then Fish Wildlife Services Administration's 12.6 million acres of wildlife refuge, the lower 48, all of which have different habitat needs than either national parks or reservation timberland. So more on this, the Montana Free Press from author Robert Cheney. 2 winters ago, again, as we're going to talk a little about this is in the continuing El Nino season results in low precipitation in various regions, and Montana's never been shy about the lack of precipitation. We heavily reliant on irrigation, and the Missouri River is such a huge, important part of our water system in Montana. Clark Fork River alone provides 80% of our water to the aquifer, so there's quite a bit of need for these rivers and streams to continue. So what else is going on in the news? I don't want to talk too much about this, but also, God, you can't really even keep up with Trump and in the administration with everything that's going on there, especially with, he went over to the Supreme Court, and when Robert De Niro and Trump's beef spills over inside the Supreme Court of the United States, we get the birthright citizens debate. These are the kind of questions we must look into as birthright means. If you are born in the United States, you're a U.S. citizen, makes sense. But Trump's effort to curb that risk, the very foundation of America. There's some people who are born in America, and then there's some people who are born in America. And so that's basically what they're trying to kind of curb and bend the law to make it illegal for illegal immigrants to have their kids have that kind of birthright citizenship thing. So part of this has everything to do with the Trump administration's efforts to curb illegal immigration, to punish those kids born in America through deportation without due process. While America is simply ignoring the immigrant internment camps, this session is first for a president, which is common phrase under the Trump administration. So Trump recently said he is ashamed of the 6 judges who joined in the 6-3 majority that ruled that much Trump's tariffs agenda is illegal, and he questions their patriotism. He seethed especially over the votes over Justice Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, 2 of his appointees, calling them an embarrassment to their families. Robert Kavanaugh, another judge appointed by Trump's administration, directly claimed that the constant anti-Supreme Court rhetoric is leading to a dangerous precedent. There is no cameras, and Trump was quiet while judges kept working through oral arrangements on the manufactured birthright issue. At this point, anything Trump complains and acts are on the manufactured outrage, and we're just along for the ride. At least be original. I've been saying it for years. He's just using the George W. Bush playbook of using immigrants as a smokescreen to avoid all those war crimes committed during the Iraq War. So if you haven't seen the clips on the right-wing podcaster asking protesters about the No Kings of lack of diversity, her turning around and slamming him basically by saying is like, we're here so because a lot of people of diversity tend to be targeted by police and ICE during these kind of protests anyways, so they're there on their behalf. So this is just a lot of interesting things, a lot of crazy things happening in the world today, especially with the recent news of Pam Bonnie's Department of Justice's attorney, who essentially was let go. It was kind of like the same thing. Everyone says that they were fired, but very much like the Kristi Noem treatment, where it's just like, oh, you're no longer the head of the committee. We're going to move you around and you're going to give you some kind of like ceremonial honorary position. So, essentially you're gone, and but you're still kind of around. So that's kind of what they did with her. And yeah, I mean, that's going to be an interesting thing because she's going to be testifying again, essentially for lying to Congress. And it's going to be a lot of interesting things happening in the next month or so. And all this is happening while we're ignoring the whole entire fact that we're going to the moon. We're doing a whole trip. The Artemis 2 astronauts rocket towards the moon after spending about a day around the Earth. This is going to be about a 10, 11-day mission. All they're doing is going to do loop around the moon, and they're going to come right here, very much like Apollo 11 before they landed on the moon. And so this is just the many things that they're going to be working on. And yeah, it's just like one of those things that you just don't really notice because there's just too much going on. Even before Trump's disastrous speech, which was supposed to calm the masses about the whole Iran war, but essentially he said he's giving up, and the Strait of Hormuz, which is a major trading hub for a lot of gas to technically leave the Strait from Iran, and there's other supplies and everything like that to go into China, Japan, many of those places that depend heavily on those Middle Eastern oils. And now America is basically being like, okay, we blew them up and now we're just kind of leaving. I don't know. I guess we're leaving. I don't know. I'm not sure. We're still trying to see if we can get that $200 billion for the Pentagon so they can continue bombing Iran, a very unpopular war based on a lot of polling. A lot of people are just outraged about this. No King's protest happened just in the midst of everything, and we're kind of just stuck in the middle of all this stuff, and that's kind of what's happening. So let's see. A little bit more about this. So in terms of some facts, the Orion capsule bolted out out of orbit around Earth right on cue and chased after the moon nearly 250,000 miles away from the Earth. So it's kind of crazy how far they're going to be going. The engineering firing was flawless. Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hedson said that his crewmates were glued to the capsule window as they left Earth in the rearview mirror, taking the phenomenal views. Their faces were pressed so tightly against the window that they had to wipe them clean. So just some fun things happening with that. Nice to go back to the moon. But for this weekend, I hope you guys enjoyed the first Friday. All these free events happening in the downtown Missoula area, all happening from 5 to 8 p.m. Some places happening a little bit earlier. Check it out. A lot of fun stuff happening. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.